Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm sorry if I sound weird, I've been under the weather this entire week, but I am getting better. The Bad Batch Season 2 finished airing a couple days ago, and I want to talk about it, but I never even talked about Season 1 on this channel, and I can't really explain my thoughts on Season 2 without first briefly explaining how Season 1 made me feel. So that's what I'm going to do. This first section will be spoiler-free, and if you have not seen The Bad Batch at all, this is kind of for you. Before I jump in, I want to briefly shout out myself on other platforms like TikTok. I've been posting short-form content to YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok recently to some mild success. If you enjoy my videos and commentaries here, I'm sure you'll love my edits and memes. Follow me there, it is always just @Remnacor. Season 1 of The Bad Batch rode hot off the heels of the revived Clone Wars Season 7 where The Bad Batch were first introduced, and it carries the burden of being a successor to one of the best animated shows of all time. The first episode was phenomenal, and everyone that I knew who liked Clone Wars had watched it and said the exact same thing. But as the weeks went by and more episodes dropped, I started hearing less about it from them, and even found out that many of them just stopped watching it entirely. One of the key differences between the Clone Wars and The Bad Batch is that the Clone Wars is an anthology series, and Bad Batch is not. If you start an episode of the Clone Wars and you see Jar Jar or droids and you don't feel like watching it, you can just skip to the next episode. But with the Bad Batch, you'll get some iconic Filoni filler, and no matter how badly you want to skip to the next episode, you probably shouldn't because this is linear storytelling. Sometimes an episode or two will depart from the Bad Batch in the first part or for the entire episode just to bring them into the conflict in the next episode, but they are the main focus and you're seeing these events unfold from their perspective. The first episode is Order 66 and the fallout from their perspective, and it's very cool. But unfortunately, you don't get these cool episodes all the time, and instead they just go on side missions. This show is exploring a very interesting time of development and change in the galaxy, and it'd be nice to see from other perspectives, but that's just not what this show is. If you can't get invested in this group of misfits, you probably won't have a very good time watching this show. I think Season 1 is underwhelming and left a lot to be desired. But hey, so did the first season of Clone Wars, and we saw how that series evolved. I hoped and still hope the same for The Bad Batch, but only time will tell. If you're someone who isn't that invested in Star Wars and only watch Clone Wars because it was on Cartoon Network and it's part of your childhood, you really may not care for The Bad Batch. Star Wars shows often reference things, people, and places that 99% of people do not understand, but The Bad Batch does it a lot. Andor did it sometimes, but it's like a super deep cut to KOTOR. But then you look up some of the stuff referenced in The Bad Batch and it was invented solely to be name-dropped in this show with no other context available. It may feel like you're missing out on key details, but if you just pay attention, the show explains itself often.
You're Saw Gerrera, trained by Captain Rex and General Skywalker to fight for the Republic.
One of the main characters is Tech, a guy who overanalyzes and overexplains everything. If you're confused during an episode, I guarantee you somebody else is too, and Tech will explain what's going on. Aside from being underwhelming, I think Season 1 is harmless. It's got some pretty memorable moments in it, but watching week by week, I'd get annoyed when I realized the plot was not going to advance this week, and instead we watch the Bad Batch do chores or pick up groceries. If you're still unsure if you should watch it, just watch the first episode at least. I think Star Wars fans of all variety will enjoy the extended first episode, and then maybe watch another 2 or 3. Overall, I didn't really have any strong opinions on this show one way or another, but I was still hopeful that it would progress and get stronger in the second season. Season 1 is like a 6 out of 10? Yeah. On to Season 2. Season 2 is definitely an improvement over the first. I will get into spoilers here, so there's your warning. Like the first season, Season 2 doesn't really have a coherent plot. The Bad Batch have a pretty vague goal of being able to retire and stop the endless fighting in a changing galaxy, but that doesn't drive the plot forward on its own. The Bad Batch just go on an infinite amount of side missions until the plot decides it's time to reconvene at a central point for a big climax involving Imperial cloning. The first season ends with a tease of how much cloning is to come, and by the end of the second season, it's really no secret what's happening here. I talked about this in my video on The Mandalorian Season 3, but the Bad Batch is also working to set up Palpatine's eventual return in the sequels.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
This season introduces us to an advanced science division in the Empire, and they explicitly say it's very important to Palpatine. Palpatine wants to use the Kaminoan's knowledge of cloning to help clone himself and effectively cheat death. All of this because J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio lack an imagination. It's really hard to not talk about this part of The Bad Batch, and The Mandalorian too, because these shows are essentially just using characters the audience likes to walk us through the events that set up and lead to the sequel trilogy. I still think Palpatine's return is dumb as fuck, and no part of me is excited to see how The Bad Batch played a role in it. This is not to say that I watched The Bad Batch with a frowny face the entire time. It's more like, she has the same accent as Omega, I bet she's a clone. Oh wow, she's a clone. Gee, I sure wonder where this is leading to. At this point, The Bad Batch feels like Din Djarin to me. The mystery surrounding him, his backstory, what he wants and what he aims to achieve isn't really the focus anymore. It is instead answering the question of what is the extent of his role in shaping the galaxy leading up to the sequels. And The Bad Batch kind of work like that too. What is the extent of their role in shaping the Empire's ability to clone people? What other fan favorite or now fan hated characters are they going to run into? What planet or event in the galaxy is left untouched by any of these people? But to get back to the positive stuff, this season definitely fixed several key issues I had with The Batch specifically. First, these guys were not actual characters. When we are introduced to them, and for most of the first season, they did not feel like unique and fleshed out characters to me. They could be described by their name and their corresponding quirks and traits, and that's it. These problems are fixed by simply spending more time with them and seeing them just talk about their feelings. It's a very simple thing that I felt the first season was severely lacking. If I never got to see Tech open up to Omega about how he feels, I would feel next to nothing during this scene in the finale. Second, Echo is fucking useless. He's the only reg in the group, and his only quirk is that he has PTSD and an R2-D2 hand. He's needed to breach doors and do techie stuff, but it creates a weird dynamic in the group because there's already a guy who does that stuff, and his name is Tech. This season eventually separates Echo from the group and he goes off with Rex. I would have liked to actually see what Echo and Rex were doing, but whatever. Third, Omega is annoying. This season we spend more time with Omega, and as a result she has grown on me. She'll either grow on you too, or still annoy you. She's not helpless this time at least, and she feels like part of the group rather than just a liability. Oh, I mean, she still is a liability, but only when the plot has to move forward. This season has some very good episodes, such as Cody's episode, the Clone Conspiracy arc, and the Zillo Beast episode. But there's also a lot of Filoni filler. I saw someone on Twitter use this term, and here is how I would define it. This week, the plot is not moving forward. The Bad Batch are doing dick all until someone says, hey, I know about a potential score, treasure, or a bounty. The gang goes to complete the mission, but they're interrupted, distracted, ambushed, caught, or trapped. In the end, they fail the assignment, but come out with a valuable lesson learned. Or sometimes if you're really running out of ideas, you can just send the Bad Batch to space Greece and then have an earthquake interrupt the peaceful evening and call it an episode. The Bad Batch go on missions and fail their assignments so often, I'm convinced Dave Filoni hates these guys. Filoni filler is not the worst thing in the world, but when you're watching the show week by week, it can be annoying. But that's the thing I forgot to mention before I started this review. I did not watch this show week by week. I did at the start, but after I watched Tech narrowly win a race on a side quest for Sid, I decided to just stop watching it and let the episodes all air out and then binge watch it. For a show like The Bad Batch, being able to truck through the filler episodes and get straight to the good stuff is a much more enjoyable viewing experience. Also, if Dave Filoni brings back Tech, I will throw a fucking fit. I am sick and tired of characters that we as a viewer have grown to like get killed off and then brought back in some way. There is no finality to death in Star Wars, and I hate it. I sincerely hope that Tech is dead and gone for good. His death works because it's so tragic. One of these guys had to die, and it made sense that it was Tech. I just had a feeling the entire time. Tech's not dead, he'll come back as a cyborg. No, Echo already had that arc. Shut the f. Overall, this show has grown on me, but at no point did I think this show was peak Star Wars. I would have liked to have seen more from Crosshair and the other clones. It's kind of weird we didn't get to see as much, but I'm hopeful that Season 3 delivers and keeps raising the stakes. This season was an improvement, so 6.5. Yeah, 6.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more videos like it. Don't forget to check out my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok where I frequently post short-form content and engage with you all directly. Let me know your thoughts on The Bad Batch in the comments down below. I am Remnacor. I will see you all in the next one.